is hard to believe, but we're only 2 weeks away, well, just over 2 weeks away from the release of Surging Sparks, which is the next main series Pokemon card set. And it's going to be the last one for 2024. Then in 2025, it's going to go absolutely litty, bonkers, nutso, whatever you want to call it. January is going to be crazy with the new Eevee set that's coming out. Terrestrial Festival is releasing in Japan, I think, at the beginning of December. And then, like, March, we'll have the Trainer Pokemon set. May, it's going to be like the Glory to Team. It's going to go absolutely crazy. We're already starting to see some insanity with Surging Sparks. I am trying to uncover some really strong information for you guys that we will hopefully talk about in tomorrow's video involving this 151 reprint, if you want to call it that. I'm not going to call it that, but this additional product that's coming out, as well as some additional Surging Sparks information. But 2 weeks from today, or tomorrow, Surging Sparks will be releasing. It's going to be absolutely amazing. We should get our product late next week, maybe next weekend. We'll get all the pre-orders packaged up and shipped out. We'll put together the Fan Clan Master Set. I got the binder in. It looks absolutely slick. And then we're going to give it away to one lucky subscriber. So if you want to win a Surging Sparks Master Set, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We've got a lot of Surging Sparks content on the horizon, and then we're going to give away that Master Set. We give away one for every set release. It's a lot of fun. But we're going to talk about something else. Something else that's not Surging Sparks or 151. There's some weird stuff going on. There's some really wacky stuff going on with some Pokemon cards, and we're going to kind of address that in this video. Some of it is very organic. Some of it seems very natural. Some Pokemon cards are absolutely exploding. Some of them are clearly not natural or organic, and possibly some manipulation going on, but I'm going to just show you the information. I'll let you guys decide what you think is going on, but there's some weird stuff going on. I'm going to flip you guys around so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. We're going to start out talking about this Bubble Mew, and we're looking at about 6 months of data here, since Pale Day and Fates came out a little bit more than 6 months ago, but not too much longer than 6 months ago. You can see it was dipping down. It was relatively flat after the card release. Pale Day and Fates was a fun set to open for a lot of people with some of the special illustration rares in the set, including the Bubble Mew, which was the fan favorite for a lot of people. That Charizard, probably also the fan favorite for a lot of people, but it's no longer the most expensive card in the set. The Bubble Mew is now the most expensive card in the set, and you can see starting to climb up in price quite a bit after July of 2024 hit. A very normal pattern of sales. We're on a weekly basis. You can see, I love the fact that TCG Player put this in there. You can see demand right around 60 to 80 copies on a weekly basis, and then September hit. And the demand for this card in specific just took off like crazy. Now, I don't know if that is natural or organic. It could be. It could just be a lot more people are liking this Bubble Mew. A lot more people want it. They're sick of trying to pull it. They don't want to open up anymore. Pale Day and Fates. But you can see we saw about a 25% growth in the amount of demand behind this card. So starting at the end of September, you started seeing 100 to 120 copies being sold on a weekly basis, as opposed to the 60 to 80 that was being sold originally. And now, this past couple of weeks, we have seen over 120 copies sold on a weekly basis, and the price point has not, I mean, it has gone up considerably as supply has shrunk. So now we're looking at about 60.43% growth over the past 6 months. It's sitting at $133.27 currently, which is insane. It is a beautiful card, and I'm not saying it doesn't warrant to be at this price point. It has just grown astronomically over the past really month and a half. Most of its damage it's done over the past month and a half, as we've started to see an increase in demand or an increase in sales on TCG Player. So Bubble Mew definitely doing some wacky things right now. The Greninja is also doing some wacky things right now. And you can see a little bit abnormalities as far as the amount of sales. This card was coming back down quite a bit. You can see in May of 2024, first of all, it started out at that low price point of about $118.77. And then when people were like, well, this Greninja is awesome, it's super in demand, I want it, FOMO was spreading like crazy, I need this dancing frog, like this beautiful, beautiful frog with all these wonderful colors, I just want it. And because of that, the price just kept climbing and climbing and climbing, and eventually it jumped over $300, but then started to regress a little bit, started to retrace a little bit, and you can see up until September of 2024, demand staying relatively consistent as far as the amount of sales happening on a weekly basis, anywhere between 20 and 40, and then at the end of September, beginning of October, that's when it hit about 260, 270 for market price, and now it has shot back up over $300 over the past couple of weeks. Now it's sitting at $309.55, so it's up about 96% over the past 6 months, but a lot of damage being done actually over the past month and a half, where it's actually grown almost 20% over just about the last month and a half after this card was coming back down to earth. So the Greninja starting to make a lot of noise again. It's up to $309.55. Yes, pull rates are more difficult in Twilight Masquerade, just like they were with Temporal Forces. Temporal Forces is really when pull rates started changing. Stellar Crown was the same way, and Surging Sparks will most likely be the same way. These are the pull rates that we're going to have, I think, for the rest of the Scarlet and Violet generation. You're going to be looking at about 2 booster boxes for 1 special illustration rare, which means Surging Sparks with a little bit extra as far as the special illustration rare count goes is going to be a little bit more difficult to pull some of those bangers. Like if you really want that Melodic or if you really want that Pikachu, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to pull, and it's going to feel a little bit more difficult to pull because there are more special illustration rares in Surging Sparks. So Greninja EX making a lot of noise. Eevee starting to capture a lot back that it lost. You can see starting out relatively inexpensive. This is also starting to happen with the Squirtle and the Bulbasaur from Stellar Crown. In May of 2024, when this set released, when Twilight Masquerade originally released, this was down to about $25.50, $26, and then started shooting up. As buyouts started happening, you can see an abnormality in the amount of sales right there in June and July. And I'm not going to say abnormality. I shouldn't say that. The set just released, so maybe that is warranted demand and things like that. And then started to cool off, and you can see the demand really starting to cool off once we hit August, and then starting to go down through September. There was one little point in time in September where we saw a blip of weekly sales topping back up over that $50-$75 price point, and that's when the Eevee was up to about $55, and now it's cooled off a little bit, still sitting at $50, about 95% above where it was. But if you look back in August, there was a portion of time where it was actually below $45. So it's gained about 10 to 20% back over the last month, starting to move back up in the upward direction, which is very interesting. So Eevee doing some interesting things, not necessarily buyouts happening on this one. You can see the demand, the amount of sales that are happening, really not anything astronomical, not anything out of sorts. They continue to actually fall on a weekly basis as we get new sets, and that's very normal for a new set, but it is starting to climb a little bit back in price. Here's the Charizard EX from Obsidian Flames. You want to talk about easier pull rates? Obsidian Flames was a beautiful set to open if you were a big fan of good pull rates and you want to master set something by opening every card. All you needed was basically just a booster box case, maybe one additional booster box, so like 7 booster boxes. You could master set Obsidian Flames. This is when everything went downhill as far as pull rates go. This is when Pokemon was like, well, we can't have pull rates this good. We got to change things up. And then they started changing things up with 151, Paradox Rift, and then moving forward, because you were still at a point where you could get 2 special illustration rares per booster box with Obsidian Flames. And since Obsidian Flames was such a small set, that Charizard EX special illustration rare was actually harder to pull, or easier to pull, than like the normal Charizard EX in the set, which is absolutely insane. This card had dropped quite a bit. It was down to $39.65. You can see demand relatively flat. It's just starting to climb in price. It's up almost 10% over the past few months. Really up quite a bit over the past, since June. It's grown quite a bit, going from $39.65, which is where it was, up about $12. So that's about 40% that it's gained over the last just few months. Now over the past 6 months, still up about 10%, but really up about 40% over the past few months, which is really insane. It's sitting at $51.08 right now, which is just off of its 1-year high, or 6-month high of $51.18, and continuing to climb. So that Charizard EX doing some wacky things. The Van Gogh Pikachu is doing a lot of wacky things. This one is really skyrocketed. It was very interesting because this one got to a point where it started getting printed to demand. There was a lot out there. You want to talk about a heavily graded card, a heavily populated card as far as PSA 10s go, and there's still a lot of people who are over in the Netherlands who have boxes and cartons of these, lots of them. They have really exploded in price, at least domestically here in the United States. It's crazy to see. In July of 2024, this had retraced all the way down at $89.12. That's really when more and more stock really started hitting the market. A lot of them got shipped over here, but if you look at what's happened really over the last month, you can see a period in time in September where this was getting bought like crazy. Very abnormal amount of sales, going from about 30 on a weekly basis all the way up to almost 70 for that brief week in September, and then it's backed off pretty much to normal demand. But obviously a lot of copies got bought out on TCG Player at the beginning of September, and because of that, the price really started skyrocketing. Now you're looking at a market price of about $131.59. So that's a 6-month high for this card, and continuing to climb up about 33%. This is why it's very important to look at these sales, look at these abnormalities, and the important thing, if you want to avoid FOMO, is that you have to be okay missing out. So if you did not get this card at the price point that you wanted, if you were really hoping that it goes down to $70 or $60 and you missed out on it, now it's up to $130, it's fine. Just move on to the next card. Move on to the next one. If you're going to avoid FOMO, eventually, every once in a while, you might miss out, and that's okay. That's okay. There's There's a lot of other bangers out there that you can collect. This is a cool card, but it has skyrocketed a lot, especially over the last couple months. Here's the Tyranitar. We saw this being manipulated back in May of 2024, where it jumped up to a one-year high, or to an all-time high of $45.62. Then, like many of those cards that did get manipulated during that time, a lot of alternate arts retrace like crazy, and you can see it going down, 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 and then September, very close to that low point of $22.60. It dropped below $30. It was about $26, $27, and now look what's happened. It's right back up there over the last month. You do see some abnormal amounts of sales that happened in September and the beginning of October, where all of a sudden it was selling between 40 and 50, and at one point in time almost 70 on a weekly basis. Now it's backed off to about 10 to 20 again on a weekly basis, but it's at a much higher price point. It's up almost 98% since May, sitting at $44.68 currently and continuing to climb. So that Tyranitar doing really wacky things. Same thing with the Groudon. This one also did a very similar pattern with a lot of buyouts that happened in May, jumped all the way up to $64.28, and then it fell down quite a bit. So it was all the way down to about a $45 card back in September. It looked like it was going to retrace, and now it's gained 20% back. So you do see abnormal amounts of sales again there at the end of September, where it jumped back up to 30 sales a week and then jumped up to almost 50 sales per week. Now it's up almost 59% over the past 6 months, but really up about 20% over the last month or so, sitting at $56.33 and continuing to climb. This one is very interesting. This is the Charmander. This is the promo card that is included in an Obsidian Flames Elite Trainer box. Now, this card is not only getting bought a lot, and part of this could be because of buyouts, also very competitive. This is the card that people use to evolve into their Charizard, that they partner up with Pidgeot. Charizard is going to be around in the format, the competitive format, for over a year yet. A lot of time with it. It's going to be very playable for that entire year. We do have a starter deck that's coming out, in the next month or so. It's not going to have this artwork, but more people are going to want to play Charizard, and this is the preferred artwork that goes with it, and all of a sudden it's up to $8.92. You're looking at a card that's up 104% over the past 6 months and continuing to climb. So from $4.37 6 months ago, now it's sitting at $8.92, 104% gain. So this is a $9 card that's included in your Elite Trainer box. So you buy an Obsidian Flames Elite Trainer box. We have them on in stock on the Card Coliseum website. I think market price for them right now is like $40, but our price is like $35. You can go to thecardcoliseum.com. Link is in the description below. That's our website. And you can buy Obsidian Flames Elite Trainer boxes all day for like $35. And then you get this card, a $9 card, that brings that ETB down to like $26. That's less than $3 a pack for Obsidian Flames, which is really, really good. So this card continuing to climb. The value in it is just absolutely insane. $8.92 and continuing to climb. Sorry for the shameless plug of thecardcoliseum.com. A lot of these ultra rares, these promo cards, doing really crazy things. The Charizard VMAX, this is from the Charizard Ultra Premium Collection. This one has skyrocketed quite a bit. It's up almost 30% over the past 6 months. You can see a lot of ebbs and flows with this one, but these cards are going to be very in demand for a long time. Obviously, you open up that Charizard Ultra Premium Collection, not only does it have a lot of Sword and Shield era packs in it, including 3 Evolving Skies, it's also got these promo cards in it, the Alternate Art Charizard VMAX, the Alternate Art Charizard V-Star, and the Alternate Art Charizard V, which sell very well on Amazon, but also are just very popular cards. You can see the growth pattern here, up to about $16.49. That is a high point for this card. Well, right now it's at $16.03. It's just off of its high point of $16.49. But you're looking at almost 30% growth over the past 6 months. It's going to continue to have ebbs and flows, but overall, if you just follow the graph, it just continues to move in the upward direction. You have a couple periods of time where there's an abnormal amount of sales, but that could be explained by just maybe one store owner cracking a bunch of Charizard UPCs and a lot of them being sold on the same day. But for the most part, very natural as far as the amount of sales go on a weekly basis. You're looking at about 80 to 90 to 100, somewhere in that area. But the Charizard VMAX doing some crazy things right now. The Deoxys VMAX, this one shot up in May, and unlike a lot of other Crown Zenith cards, which have retraced quite a bit, this is a really cool looking card. This card has stayed and continued to climb. It's up almost 74% over the past 6 months. In May of 2024, it was sitting at $10.42. It spiked when a lot of those other Crown Zenith cards spiked, and it jumped up to about $18 in June of 2024, just under $18. And then it retraced a little bit, like what we saw from a lot of the other cards, but then it just continued to climb back up, and now it's sitting at $18.10, which is actually just off of its 6-month high of $18.22, which it actually hit a couple weeks ago. So the Deoxys VMAX doing some very strange things. Obviously, a little bit of patterns here where there's some weird sales going on, but for the most part, really ever since August, we've seen an increase in demand in this card, whether it be natural or not. There has been an increased demand as far as the amount of sales that have gone on. So very interesting interesting to see that Deoxys VMAX doing a lot of work. Walking Wake EX, a special illustration rare from Temporal Forces. This one definitely not really being manipulated at all. This one is just skyrocketing like crazy. You can see the amount of sales on a weekly basis, very normal. Like, it's been right around 20 to 30 ever since July, and it's stayed the course of that. There has not been a period of time where we've had this giant upswing in the amount of sales per week. In April of 2024, this was down to a $37.47 card. It jumped up, and it was relatively flat from June of 2024 all the way up until September of 2024, and then demand just started to increase, but supply did not line up with that, and then all of a sudden now it's a $61 card. It's jumped up to $61.26. That's a 6-month high for this card, up almost 37% over the past 6 months and continuing to climb. Armored Mewtwo, some older cards, really interesting things as well. This card, obviously something weird happened with this one, because at the end of September, beginning of October, you can see selling about 4 to 5 times the amount for that week than what it normally sells. So this card clearly got bought up, and because of that, the market price adjusted like crazy. It's up about 91% over the past 6 months, but started to climb quite a bit, and then all of a sudden, end of October or end of September, a lot of sales happened out of nowhere. So $57.88 in April. Now all of a sudden it's up to $110.45. Obviously something wacky is going on with this Armored Mewtwo. The Mega Rayquaza EX, this one a little bit different. Not a whole lot of additional sales going on. Very consistent, where only 1 or 2 sell on a weekly basis, but it's still putting in a lot of work, making a lot of noise. In May of 2024, this was down to $152.19. This is from the Ancient Origins set. It's just done really, really well. This Mega Rayquaza shiny card. This is one of the secret rares in the set. It's exploded almost 47% over the past 6 months, sitting at $223.30 right now and continuing to climb. And then we have a couple more here. So the Pidgey, this one from Obsidian Flames, also making a lot of noise right now. Obsidian Flames, like I said before, very easy pull rates, especially when it comes to the illustration rares. Pidgeot, a very playable card. We talked about that Charizard before. Pidgeot, kind of the same thing. Pidgey, you need to evolve into Pidgeot. You don't need the Pidgeotto. You can use your Rare Candy, but you need the Pidgey. And the Pidgey has made a lot of noise. This one obviously doing very, very well. Lots of sales that have happened over the past several weeks, but not really abnormal amounts of sales. This is just more of a natural progression right here. In May of 2024, this was about $3.48 card. Obsidian Flames a little bit more difficult to find, especially when it comes to booster boxes at decent pricing, and it's really starting to skyrocket. Now, it did jump up to about $9.91, and it's retraced a little bit, but still sitting at $8.04, which is about 131% above where it was 6 months ago. So a lot of growth on that one. The Charizard from Trainer Gallery card from Lost Origin. Look at what happened in September. All of a sudden, out of nowhere. Usually this card is doing about 100 sales on a weekly basis, but beginning of September, it did 350. That's a little weird, and because of that, you can see this giant insurgence of the price point as far as the market goes. In August of 2024, this is a $3.61 card. Now all of a sudden, it blew up over the last month and a half, really because of 1 week of time where this giant amount of sales happened out of nowhere, and now all of a sudden it's a $6.31 card, up about 38% over the past 6 months, but really since August, it's almost doubled in price because of just that 1 week of sales, which is absolutely crazy. So there's a lot of Pokemon. This isn't all of them, but this is some of them making a lot of weird noise right now in the Pokemon card market. So it's very interesting to look at, very interesting to keep track of. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. If you did, please hit that subscribe button down below, leave a like, leave a comment, share the channel. It goes a really long way for the algorithm, but ultimately, just thank you for being here. Thank you for talking to me. I love you guys. You guys are absolutely amazing. I love your comments. They mean a lot to me. So thank you for everything. We'll be back tomorrow with another video. Until next time, guys. Peace.